Maiden originated in the East End of London. Which part of the East End are you from exactly?
Leytonstone, actually.
You're right.
It's not really the real art of the East End, but it's, you know, just the borders of it, I suppose.
It's also no particular secret that you're a staunch West Ham supporter.
Oh, yeah.
We shan't hold that against you here.
Well, they're doing well at the moment. So.
They are doing well, yes, I'm afraid they are. Was there ever a chance that you might have gone into football rather than become a professional musician?
Yeah, well, when I was about 14, you know, I had trials for West Ham. I was on their books for about 6 months, and I don't know, I just got disillusioned with it, really, because, you know, from sort of this eye, I wanted to be a professional footballer like most kids, and when I actually got down there, I found it was too, I don't know, I didn't want to be that competitive, and it's too serious, and just at the age when I wanted to start going out and meeting birds and
meeting women,
and drinking with the lads and stuff.
What sort of bands were you into when you first got interested in music? Who did you like to listen to?
When I first got into music, I was really, I suppose, into bands like King Crimson and Genesis and early Black Sabbath, Purple, Zeppelin, all that sort of stuff, and Jeff Hotel, of course. Basically, you know, for a mate, you know, I used to bunk off school and shouldn't really say that, but I used to go around with my mates, play a bit of chess and that, and he used to put all these albums on, and I thought it was hippie music, you know. I was not used to all this stuff. I'd been listening to the Beatles and things like that, and I thought, you know, what is all this stuff? And he stuck it all on, and I said, I couldn't handle it at first. And he said, well, look, take a couple of albums home, Jeff Hotel and things like that. So I borrowed them, and lo and behold, I got to become hooked with the stuff. And, you know, I just really started wanting to hear more and more, you know, rock albums or whatever. And it sort of went from there.
Well, searching through the archives, the first band I can find that you're involved with is a band called Influence, which I think later became called Gypsy's Kiss. What sort of music was that? Very heavy. Not very subtle, and really not very good, probably. We did try and write a couple of songs. In fact, we used to do an early sort of version of Innocent Exile, which was, you know, sort of after the song at that time we were using. But we used to do stuff by Wishbone Ash, and not very good though, you know. I mean, they were a bit too good at that time, you know, for us to copy them really well. But later on, we started doing stuff by Free and Sabbath and stuff like that, and, you know, started to learn quite a lot. And in the end, I think I've been playing only about 10 or 11 months, and we actually did our first gig. Actually, just placed just around the corner from Dave Light's. Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like Aberfield Hill in Poplar.
Right. And
it was like a competition. We only played for 15 minutes, and I was so nervous that I was supposed to start this break-in show thing, and I messed it up so bad that the singer thought I was tuning out. You know? It was that bad, yeah.
Did you win the competition?
We came second.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
Was that the first time you met up with Dave Lights at that thing, or did you know him already before that?
No, I knew him before that. We met in the Bridge House pub and that, and basically he knew me missus, you know, because they went to school together and that, and basically I just asked him if we could rehearse at his place where he was staying, at his vicarage place.
Yeah. When you left school in 1972, you didn't get involved with music on a full-time basis straight away. What sort of jobs did you work as then?
Well, I was an architectural draftsman, and I did an apprenticeship for about 5 or 6 years, and got my exams and all that. But in the meantime, I was made redundant and that, and I did various jobs like, you know, dustman and road sweeping,
all the glamorous
packing in
jobs.
Factories and stuff like that. Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah.
After Gypsy's Kiss, you got involved with a band called Smiler, I think.
That's right.
Was that different musically to Gypsy's Kiss?
It was quite different. Yeah, it was more sort of rock blues stuff, and we used to do stuff by Savoy Brown and early Fleetwood Mac and all that sort of thing. Because the blokes I was in the band, I mean, I was like 18 at the time, and the blokes I was in the band were like 26, and I thought that was sort of ancient at the time. But, you know, they were a lot older, and, you know, they had a lot more experience in playing different sorts of music, and I thought, well, you know, I'll try playing some different sort of stuff. I mean, I'm not particularly into the blues that much. Some of it, you know, like Free and I like, but blues influenced stuff I'm into, but not actually really the blues. But I, you know, tried my hand at it and learnt a lot. We did quite a few gigs, and basically got me out there on the stage, you know, which was the main thing. That was the basic thing leading up to forming Maiden, gave me confidence to form my own band. Right,
and that happened in Christmas of 1975.
That's right.
You left Smiler and formed your own band called Iron Maiden, which you designed the logo for as well.
Yeah.
Why did you pick the name Iron Maiden? Was it to do with Margaret Thatcher?
No, I think it was then. It was, you know, I was only sort of linked up really later on, but she wasn't even in power then, I think. And, so really, it was a torture instrument thing. You know, I was watching this film, Man in the Iron Mask and all that, and it was, although that's not actually in the film, basically talking about names. This was before I even formed the band. I was thinking about names for a band. And that just came up. I thought, oh yeah, that'd be great, you know.
At which point things get quite complex in Maiden's career. Now, you had a keyboard player who briefly passed through the band, and then Paul Di'Anno appeared on the scene as vocalist. Was he the first serious singer that Iron Maiden had, would you say?
Probably, yeah, the first serious singer. The other couple of singers probably wouldn't agree with that, but but yeah, he was, yeah. We had a bloke before that called Dennis, and other guys, you know, Paul Day. But they weren't in the band for very long.
I think Dennis was the Kiss fan, wasn't he? He used to have blood coming out of his mouth on stage.
Yeah, he had a sword on stage, and he used to pull sword through his mouth, had blood capsules coming out, but we all said it was a bit too much like Kiss, you know.
Sounds quite interesting, actually.
It was good, you know. I've still got some shots of the early days and that, and it's quite good to sort of look through the old albums and have a look at them and see what, you know, what he was up to at the time.
So when does the infamous Ruskin Arms appear on the scene with Iron Maiden? About this time or later?
That was a bit later, actually.
Yeah.
Because originally, you know, when we started out in like 79 and that, really gigging seriously, before that we'd just been playing, you know, one pub here and there, and then gigging seriously in 78, 79. We were basically doing sort of, you know, the Arrow in Barking and the Bridge House, Canning Town and Carton Horses and places like that, all these thing gigs, and we couldn't get work outside, really, you know.
Now, in the early days, Maiden seemed to be thought of as some kind of punk metal crossover band. Did you ever see yourself as being affiliated to the punk movement in any way?
Not at all, no. In fact, we hated it because it stopped us getting work. We couldn't get work, you know, because of, I won't say what I called them, but a lot of these bands, and, you know, we were really annoyed because we weren't getting, you know, regular work.
It is true, though, that you were booked to play the Roxy, a very notorious punk hangout in Covent Garden.
Yeah, well, it was quite funny, really, because to be honest, we didn't really know what was happening with this punk thing until it's really started to get in the press, and this was just before that. And so anyway, we got booked to do this gig through some agent who wanted to manage us and turn us into, you know, I don't know, whatever, you know.
Told you to cut your hair, probably.
That's right, yeah. So anyway, she happened to book this gig at the Roxy, so we thought we'd better go and check it out, because we thought, well, we're not too sure about her, you know. So we went down there, and me and the singer Dennis at the time went down there, and there's all these, like, well, yobbos, like, sort of going over each other and stuff, and it was a bit, yeah. But I thought, you know, if we went down there and played a gig, and our fans come down there, there's going to be ructions, you know.
I can imagine there'd have been trouble,
That's right, so we said, no way, you know.
So instead you went off and you recorded a demo, which featured 4 tracks, which were Invasion, Prowler, Strange World, and Iron Maiden.
That's right, yeah. Well, we went to Cambridge to do that, Spacewood Studios, and it was like New Year's Eve, 1978. Snow for days. It was just covered, and we had a motor that we, you know, had no sort of tax and insurance or anything. It was falling apart. We just had to get up there, and we didn't even have a place to stay. We were going to keep in the back of the van.
Yeah.
And lucky enough, Paul dispersed and invited us to a party, and we crashed out of this party. So otherwise we'd have been keeping in the back of the van, you know.
The demo was quite significant, though, in Iron Maiden's history. And of course, Iron Maiden is still a big number in the set today. Yeah,
I think it's been quite a few years now, really. As far as I know, we've always ended the set with that song. And, you know, I don't think the fans would really want us to change that, you know. I don't really think there's another song that we feel would feel right at the end of the set.
In one particular show, you played with Samson and Angel Witch.
That's right,
and there was a review that appeared of that gig in Sounds, which is the first time, I think, the new wave of British heavy metal was actually mentioned. Did you consider yourself part of a new wave at that time? Did you see it as being a new movement?
Again, you know, as I said before, we didn't realise there was a movement as such going on, and we knew that there were bands, you know, breaking to get through and trying to get work, and it had been too long since, you know, like the big bands had broken into a certain area, and then there was this big gap, and there was no new young bands coming through, but we weren't really aware that there was this big movement happening, and we didn't really know about Saxon at the time and things like that until it started getting good, you know, like press coverage and stuff, and then we realised it was quite, there's bands everywhere, you know, really trying to go for it, and thought this is good, you know, because like all this punk thing was happening, and we wanted to keep them out the door, like, you know. So it was great, you know.
So in December of that year, you signed a recording contract with EMI, and Rod became your manager officially. But you'd already had a lot of press. You'd had the front cover of Sounds already before that. Did that press help you get the record deal, do you think?
Yeah, it probably helped, but I think what really did the record deal was that they came down at a couple of gigs and this, that and the other, and we'd been playing to a following, and they knew that we had this real hardcore following. And when they finally came down to the Marquee, because Rod had a bet with me, actually, that we were going to sell the Marquee out, and because I was really well, I said, oh, I don't think we're going to sell it out. He said, oh, yeah, we'll sell it out by 8 o'clock, and sure enough, we did sell it out.
He's a fairly shrewd businessman, Old Small, isn't he?
Yeah, he knows what he's doing, and So then, of course, the record company people come down to that, and they couldn't believe it, and, you know, sort of unknown band, and that's selling out the marquee first time headlining, and, you know, they took it from there.
So when you signed to EMI, you presumably quit the various jobs you've been doing and became full-time professional?
That's right. Well, actually, we'd already done that about 2 or 3 months before, because we started getting a lot more work. Because after the demo tape, you know, and the charting sounds and everything, we was able to get a lot more work. So we had to actually give our jobs up, and so we could sort of work all through the week rather than just taking long weekends and going sick and what have you.
So Maiden's first UK headline tour was in November, December of 1979, and then you released a single called The Soundhouse Tapes that had 3 tracks from your demo. Now, you couldn't actually buy that in record stores, could you? I gather a lot of them were keen to get hold of it.
Yeah, well, we were selling it mail order, and also we were selling it at gigs. We had a couple of our roadies, like, we had T-shirts made up as well, just like plain red ones with just black Iron Maiden logo on it. And you still see a couple of them on the road now and again, so you know the real hardcores, you know. But there was only really 5,000 made, although at the time we said it was like 15, you know, just to sort of, you know, add a bit more to it. But it was actually only 5,000 ever made, and there were temptations to, a bit later on, to, you know, get rid of some more, because people were asking for them before. No, but leave it as like a collector's thing, and then the real hardcore fans would be the ones that, you know, have got it.
Then on February the 15th, you released the first single on EMI, and that was Running Free, and you played live on Top of the Pops. It must have been a very interesting experience. Yeah,
it's pretty chaotic, really, because if people running around, you know, with like decibel meters and all that sort of thing, and in the end, it messed us up a little bit, because, you know, we couldn't sort of play at the volume that we needed to play to get the sound and everything. But at least we went on there and played, and we were the first band, I think, to play live on the Abstinence of You about 8 years before something.
The single's also significant in that it featured the artwork of Derek Riggs for the first time. The figure of Eddie, though, he was kind of shaded and off in the background a little bit. Derek's worked on all your records since then. He's obviously a very important member of the team these days.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's definitely like 6th or 7th member of the band now, if you include Martin Birch. And, you know, I mean, his artwork's amazing, I think. It just gets better and better. But what we do, really, we give him the lyrics and everything and say, well, you know, these are the lyrics, you know, make something of that. And sometimes we change a few things, like on the Running Free single, I think we changed it from Arsenal on the back wall to West Ham or something like that, you know.
Right. So then you went on and did your first album with Will Malone producing that one. And then you toured with Judas Priest, the album going in about number 4, I think, in the UK.
That's right.
I think Priest at the time kind of felt you were ripping them off a little bit in terms of the way you looked and the way you sounded. Was there some uneasiness on that UK tour?
A bit, maybe, but I think they were more surprised the fact that we actually had a big following, you know, and quite a few of our fans were at the gigs, because we'd actually been round and did like all the clubs and that in those areas where we were playing. So I think it surprised them quite a lot, actually, that we were actually going down so well, you know, did fun a bit.
Well, in fact, you went down so well, you then embarked on your own headline tour of the UK, in which Eddie appeared on stage for the first time. And you then played the Reading Festival. You were second on the bill to UFO on the Saturday nights. Must have been great for you. I know people way of UFOs.
Yeah, big UFO fan.
That's right, you're a big admirer of it. There must have been a big step for the band playing the Reading Festival there.
Yeah, we were really nervous. I mean, we were so nervous. It was the first couple of numbers, I think we pretty much messed up, and, you know, it really took us a little while to settle down. But the fans were so much behind us, it was unbelievable. You know, we couldn't seem to do any wrong, really, you know, in their right sort of thing. But once we settled down, it was, you know, plain sailing. It was great.
Right. So after that, you were off into Europe. There was a 40-day tour supporting Kiss, and then Dennis Stratton left the band. What happened with him?
Well, he wasn't really into what we were doing, I don't think, you know. He started trying to write some songs and that, and they weren't really, you know, our cup of tea at all. And he was never really into the heavier sort of stuff. He was more into, like, Wishbone Ash and the Eagles and that sort of stuff, which is fine, but, you know, he wanted to incorporate that sort of stuff with what we were doing, and, you know, we just weren't into it, so there was all sort of disagreements going on there, and in the end he ended up going, you know.
He was replaced by Adrian Smith, who was, I think, previously with the Broadway Brats, and you recorded a single called Women in Uniform, which had previously been done by an Australian band called Skyhooks, and again played live on Top of the Pops, and also did a promo video, which I think was one of the first ones ever done.
Yeah, I think it was, actually. We were told at the time that it was probably the first actual promo rock video. So, yeah, you know, it's good. It's actually quite a good video. It never got played on very much, but, you know, still watch it now and again.
I'm actually from Worksop in Nottinghamshire, but it always gets put in biographies as I come from Sheffield.
Yes, I've read you're from Sheffield.
Yes,
as well.
in fact, I'm from about 20 miles south of Sheffield.
Do you want to put the record straight here, then?
Put the record straight. Rod thinks of me as a token Yorkshireman, because he comes from Huddersfield.
Yeah.
And he has to have an ally somewhere in the...
So you're it, basically.
I'm it, but I'm not actually from Yorkshire. But don't tell him that, because he still sort of thinks I'm a kind of a Yorkshire.
We'll keep that one quiet, then. Yeah. And your background is very different to that of your predecessor, Paul Di'Anno. You actually went to a boarding school. So you did your street credibility quite a lot good by getting expelled from it as well. Why was that?
I did do my exam results much good, but yeah. Well, I was actually the thing I was actually finally expelled for was getting rid of the contents of my bladder and the headmaster's dinner.
So after that, you were off to Queen Mary College.
Yeah. And
you were getting involved with bands, I think, rather than studying in the library. You were playing with bands.
That's the main thing that prompted me. I mean, I'm not, although I'm quite interested in history, I mean, I didn't exactly want to turn into a Don or anything like that, or go and be a history teacher.
Oh, you were studying for a history degree there, were you?
Yeah, and well, the main reason I went to do history there was a friend of mine had been there, and he said that it was to quote, he said it was the biggest DOS he'd ever had for years in his life. So I went, well, I've got to go there because it's in London, and what I really want to do is try and get involved in music, so it seemed like a good idea. All I had to do was write a few essays and pass a few exams, and then I could spend most of the rest of the time working on singing and bands and things.
Things got a little more serious. You joined up with Samson, who featured Paul Sampson and Thunderstick as well, people might know. You were with them for about 2.5 years. Was it a tough decision to leave Samson to join Iron Maiden when Paul Di'Anno quit?
Yes and no. It was musically it wasn't a tough decision at all, because as far as the music thing was concerned, I was absolutely convinced that it was the right thing to do, because I'd always admired what Maiden had been doing, and thought, well, you know, wouldn't it be great to sing for a band like that? You know, the thing that really made me sweat for about 3 days was the idea that I was letting everybody down in the band, because we'd been through an awful lot of problems, and we'd all been sued into next week, and people had, you know, been threatened with losing everything and all the rest of it. I mean, I didn't have anything to begin with, so, you know, 100% of nothing wasn't a big problem for me, but we had been through a lot of problems and made just about every mistake it was possible to make in terms of the business, you know, like getting the worst record companies and the worst managers, the worst agents, and everything. So that was something, and I just sat down and thought, well, hang on, I shouldn't really be having to think about that. I should really just go with what feels good as far as the music's concerned. Yeah. And so I just sat down and told them one day, I said, look, Maiden asked me to join, and I really want to do it, and so I thought I'd tell you.
Started recording the Number of the Beast album with Martin Birch, done at Battery Studios in Willesden. In March of 1982, Run to the Hills was released as the first single, and that was followed by the album itself. As I said, it was called The Number of the Beast, and there was a video done for the title track of that album, wasn't there?
Yes, recorded at Newcastle City Hall, actually. Immediately, but we had to get up very early. We were in Edinburgh the night before, and we had to get up very early and come down to start shooting the video. They just set up the gear on stage for the show, and we were shooting the video all day long until about 1/4 hour before the doors opened. In fact, we had to hold the doors, I believe, and we were still all in our stage kit. We were absolutely knackered, and so we just had time to go down, have a cup of tea, and just go straight back out on stage again. And the video you're going to see in a minute, you'll notice that there's a couple of ballroom dancers come on, which was the director's idea. He had this bright idea coming up on the train. So we arrived in Newcastle, and breezes in as all directors do, with like, give me this dear, and give me that dear, and, you know, all the rest of it.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Yeah, you know video directors are like. And he suddenly announced he wanted to find 2 ballroom dancers. So we phoned up. This is like immediately. I want to have 2 ballroom dancers. I'm in Newcastle upon Tyne on a Saturday afternoon, and he found these 2 people who'd never been in a video. They were just like amateur dancers, and they just turned up, and they really got into it. They were, you know, and then we had the idea of turning his wife, who's the guy who's dancing or something like that. We said, Well, I tell you what we'll do. We'll turn your wife into a werewolf. Do you mind dancing with a werewolf?
Please.
This is great, you know. And so it worked out quite well in the end. Because we flew back from the last show we did in America was in El Paso, so which is somewhere down in the depths of Texas. So we flew back on this horrendous flight. It was awful. All I remember was I had some terrible things for my neck because I'd messed up the vertebrae in my neck and slipped the disc and everything. So I had these like horse tranquilizers or something on the journey back. American Airlines economy class, that was it. There's me and Dave Light sat next to each other, and Dave said, "Oh God," he said, "I can't sleep." I said, "Take one of these." So we both swallowed one, and I woke up about every half an hour and just, there was his head, there was my head. I went, oh, like that. So we got back to England, had a couple of days off to adjust, from jet lag, which didn't do us any good at all. And then we went off on 3 warm-up dates for Reading.
Right.
And I was so nervous that, like, about 36 hours before Reading, I completely lost my voice.
Really? Just went?
I mean, it just went. And it was nerves. I mean, it was nerves. I mean, because things like that do happen with your voice occasionally. Not very often, thank God, but I mean, I was like, oh, you know, I was absolutely panic-stricken. And I went down the festival the day before, and everything. I was wandering around with a big sort of sign saying, "Don't talk to me." You know, I can't.
Yes, I remember you weren't speaking that day.
Well, thinking about it now, you know, with the headline band and Saturday Night the Singers walking around the day before going, "I've lost my voice."
It was interesting. You know, you managed to pull through. You were joined
well,
on stage
it came back miraculously. As soon as I walked on, I thought, I can't possibly lose my voice. This is Reading Festival. So there it was. And then the following day, I went down with the most awful case of flu.
Interesting experience.
Yeah.
Let's move the story along to 1983.
Yeah.
Your voice had come back by this stage, but drummer Clive Burr decided to leave the band. What was that all about?
Again, it was. I think it was more similar to the Paul Di'Anno thing. Although there was a fairly strong musical element in it as well, because as a result of his certain sort of personal things he'd been going through, he's having a lot of problems adjusting, I think, to the idea, not to his position as a drummer in a big rock band, you know.
Well, anyway, his replacement was Nico McBrain.
Yeah, Nico, yes.
Very well.
Well, Nico, again, we'd seen him on the Trust tour, and we used to watch him when Trust was, I mean, I wasn't on that tour initially, when Trust supported us in England, but when Trust did a few shows with us was it in France? No, it was in Germany. We always used to creep up to the side of the stage and watch Nico, because he was just such a phenomenal drummer. I mean, he was one of those drummers who's like poetry in motion when you watch him. Call Nico poetic, but you know,
stretching it a bit, I think.
But you know, there's some drummers you can, even if you're not a drummer, you can watch them and think, cool, that guy's really good. You know, just the way he moves and the way he handles things and everything. So
he joined up, and for some strange reason, you decided to leave sunny Willesden for the Bahamas to record the next album at Compass Point.
Yes, we did. Yes.
Still using Martin Birch. This is the Peace of Mind album we're talking about now. The first single from that was Fly to Icarus, and you recorded the video for that out in the Bahamas.
Yeah, Compass Point. Well, we were stuck, so we had found a film crew who were based in Miami with this director called Jim Yukich, because they were really close and we were working to quite a strict budget. So we thought, well, we'd fly over these septics and see how good they are. And funnily enough, we've stuck with them ever since. I mean, Jim has actually produced everything we've ever done since, and directed everything we've ever done since.
He's become another member of the Maiden team, but...
Yeah, sort of. He's more on the technical side. He's a very good technical director, is what we use it for.
So Fly to Icarus was his first effort?
Yes, it's got all kinds of stuff in here. We've got Nico as it's a real Heath Robinson production. We've got Nico as the hooded character. I'll never forget Nico, face painted blue, with a mouthful of strawberry jam.
Yeah, not pleasant.
With a mouthful of strawberry jam, because we didn't use this section for the video, as it turned out. But Nico went, he got that great idea. He said, I'll sit here and then I'll dribble strawberry jam out of my mouth. And as he was doing it, there was this enormous electrical storm going on, like they only have in the Caribbean, with like lightning everywhere. And we sat there for half an hour trying to capture Nico dribbling strawberry jam with a bolt of lightning in the background, and it didn't work. So eventually we just used him as a painted blue. And Martin Birch is also featured in this video as well.
Keep an eye out for both of them.
Keep an eye out for Martin Birch.
Had it been an ambition of yours to play a big venue like that, and that one in particular?
Well, I think for me, Madison Square Garden was always sort of like a bit pie in the sky. I mean, it was like, wow, you know. And I'd always imagined it to be bigger for some reason. When I walked it, for some reason, I'd confused it with like the Houston Astrodome, which was so big they have clouds and stuff inside the building. And that's kind of what I expected. And in fact, it's really no bigger really than most American arenas.
After that appearance, you were out on the road again. You were doing 300 shows in 13 countries, 5 of which ended up behind the Iron Curtain. You played Poland. How was Poland?
It was great, actually. We're going back there next year. Yeah, we start the tour there. So it was obviously all right because we went back there. Again, I ended up somewhere most peculiar in Poland. The first night I was there in Warsaw, sleeping on the floor with this journalist and half a dozen students at 7 o'clock in the morning with all these empty bottles of vodka in some suburb of Warsaw. I'm quite convinced we shouldn't have been. It was probably verboten or something. Yeah. And wandering around with this journalist from Kerrang going, oh, God, what happened? You know,
Kerrang journalist.
Yeah. Poland was a bit like that. It was a bit like, oh, what happened? You know, because of course they have this strange thing. They don't drink beer over there. You go into nightclubs.
That is strange.
And things.
Yes.
Well, they have lots of beer, but you go to nightclubs and you go, I'd like a beer, please. It's like, no, only vodka. In fact, no, they don't even have vodka in the nightclubs because it's like they don't drink vodka or beer. We went to a nightclub, you could only drink Bacardi, whiskey, gin or something else, and the only thing you could mix it with was Coke. So that was it. It was just like brain damage for the whole tour. The audiences were fantastic, and the technical side of it was really well done too, actually. They were really well organised. They were so up for it, because they'd never seen a show that big over there before.
Yeah. By this point, the Power Slave album was out, again produced by Martin Birch at Compass Point Studios in Nassau. I think most Maiden fans would regard it as your strongest studio album, without question.
I think, there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that Nico, by this stage, was really completely integrated in the whole band, having done a world tour and everything as well. And so nobody was holding anything back at all, and there was no problems about line-up changes, or certainly, I mean, nobody was in any danger whatsoever of, like, getting pissed off with the whole situation or leaving or whatever. And so everybody just mucked in straight away and just got stuck in. And I think it's the closest to live that we've ever got on a studio album. You know, it's the closest to, like, a live sound.
And the stage show, which was very elaborate too.
Well, the stage show sort of stemmed from the album, really.
Had an Egyptian theme based on the album's sleeve.
So, well, I wanted to sort of go a bit, you know, Egyptian, so to speak.
Well, there's one track on the album, which is the title track, Power Slave.
Yes,
based on those themes.
Yes, but in fact, Revelations on the album before, on Peace of Mind, also had bits of sort of Egyptological references sort of slung in that track. I thought about making that one much more specific, but I thought, no, let's wait a little bit. So I ended up on this one, coming up with Power Slave, and then suggesting to everybody else, well, we don't really have an idea for the album cover. What about Egypt? So I got my picture books out and had a look and sort of looked for album cover ideas, and we came up with this brilliant idea, and showed it to Derek Riggs, who painted it, and it was naff. So he just went away and painted his own thing, and it was brilliant.
Certainly a great sleeve. Really very good.
Well, again, we sat down and tried to plan it out and tried to go, well, couldn't you have like a huge temple here with a sort of a hieroglyph up there? And Derek would go, yeah. And he'd go away and come up with something totally different that was absolutely brilliant.
Which just about brings us up to the present day and the release of the new double live album, Live After Death. Yeah. Again, with a very impressive Derek Riggs sleeve on it.
Yes. Yes, well, we wanted the logical progression after taking his brain out and then killing him.
Not Derek Riggs.
Yeah, mummifying him. Well, possibly Derek as well, actually. And mummifying him and stuff like that was to resurrect him live, and of course, Live After Death was was a great title for the album too.
Was the album originally going to be a triple live album rather than a double?
Well, we thought about it, but by the time we'd figured out how much all the extra whinging and whining and screams and howls of indignation from record companies and all the rest of it was going to cost, plus the fact that that cost would all be passed on to the person who had to buy it at the end of the day, we thought we'd make it a double but cram 100 minutes on it.